Welcome back to the Man Cave, lovies. For this episode of the ManTFup podcast, I'm Kimmy B.
And Lenny.
This is episode 59. Before we go any further, please like, subscribe, share, and follow absolutely everywhere. Make sure you're with us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, everywhere. Drop your comments. Get involved in the conversation. We love to hear from you. I love to fight with you. I'm just kidding. But it honestly does seem like I've been doing a lot of fighting in the comments as of late. But
sounds like they're winning.
They're not winning. They're not winning at all. I'm actually getting more educated because anytime somebody questions something that we discuss on the podcast or something that I say, I always have to double down to make sure that I was, correct in the information that I gave. I have no problem saying I was wrong or thank you for the information or if you have something to add to the conversation. But obviously this is a new episode. We'll save the rebuttal episode for a few down the line. I need a moment to decompress because it's been a rough couple weeks. Like, whew. I get notifications that, there's a new message on TikTok and I'm like, do I open it? Not right now. I want to go to sleep. I have to get up very early for my radio job. But we're going to talk about some of the things going on in and around the world, especially in Hollywood right now. If you've been following the news, which I know some of you definitely do and others are adamantly against, SAG-AFTRA, which is the union of the Screen Actors Guild, along with the Writers Union or the Writers Guild in Hollywood, are both striking at the same time now. And this is, I want to say, the first time in over 4 decades that they've both been on strike simultaneously. Mm-hmm. So this is big. I mean, Hollywood is basically shut down. And it's not because of COVID this time. This was by choice. Both of these, establishments or organizations just really fed up with the situation. And obviously, a lot has changed in Hollywood. A lot has changed in the world, and it's changing very quickly. It's something I think we referenced quite a bit on this podcast. And it's difficult to keep up, but, at some point, I think everybody's going to have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how their industry moves forward in this new world of, in this new digital world, for real.
Yeah, lawyers are going to have to do some work.
For sure. And obviously a big part of the issue right now is the streaming services, right? Residuals, what's owed, how are people compensated for, not just the work that they're doing right now, but the work that they've already done as it bounces from, Hulu to Netflix to Disney Plus to Max to Apple TV.
A lot of them aren't paying for it and are dropping the shows. They run the shows for a little while and then they drop them when they get. But
regardless,
when they get asked.
I have to be honest though. I thought as a person who's followed Hollywood, who has worked in the entertainment industry for quite a long time at this point, I figured it was like network television. I was like, ooh, everybody got a syndication deal now with streaming. And it is the complete opposite because it's completely uncharted territory. There was no documentation in place with regards to
who gets paid
and how. There were no parameters set for the streaming world. So as network TV becomes less and less viable, right? There's less and less of those Friends type of syndication deals. I hate to use this as a reference point, but the Cosby syndication deals. I mean, look, even All in the Family still in syndication. Mm-hmm. That was what really put Seinfeld on the map. Yes, it was a great show when it was on, and people obviously loved it, but it's got a cult following. And every time the man signed a new syndication deal, he basically made $250 million.
Yeah. Same with Friends.
Yeah. But that was something that they worked out. But the difference was Jerry was a writer on that show. Who's the other guy that wrote with him? Larry David. So the two of them were really, at the top of that food chain.
They made all the money.
And they made sure that the others obviously got
Writers,
fed.
Producers.
And they did. But when you're the guy writing the script, producing the show, acting in it, it's based on your life. Yeah, that check looks a little different for you. You know what I mean? Than it does for, say, Elaine or George Costanza. The Friends team collectively operated together. It's like they were their own little mini union, inside of SAG-AFTRA. Mm-hmm. And they basically agreed that they would all make the same pay and that none of them would sign if they all didn't make an equal amount. So they all got I think at the end, about $1 million an episode. And then they got a nice chunk when it went into syndication. But it's crazy because Jerry Seinfeld is getting paid. I think Max has Friends right now. No, who has Seinfeld? Max has Friends for sure, and you know they got to check. Like, you know they got to check for that because that's a get for these streaming services. Like, there's certain shows that some people will, that if you weren't necessarily a Max subscriber, but now they've got Friends, you might go and spend the $12 a month or whatever it is because that's your show and you want to be able to see it and you can't get it anywhere else unless you go buy it on DVD.
I think some of those shows are probably going to, if they have to pay, if the streaming services have to pay, they're going to pass those charges over, just like Amazon. If you go to Amazon to buy to watch something and it costs $2,
but Lenny, this just feels very greedy to me on the part of the execs behind these streaming platforms. And I say that because, Netflix has now been around for quite a while. Obviously, so is Amazon Prime. I've been paying for HBO for decades, in one way, shape, or form, whether it was on my television.
Yeah, but I think HBO, Cinemax, and those stations have always paid residuals. I think the newer ones.
But here's the deal:
Netflix,
they pay for their original content. Like they never really had all these other shows. What you found on HBO was HBO's original programming.
Yeah,
so,
but like the movies, all of that stuff.
Okay,
They pay.
But I think that was all back ended from a long time ago. Again, when you start adding other films into, and those were deals that were worked out. I mean, these were all studios too. Let's be real, like Cinemax. Max, like these were all the original streaming services all spiraled off of actual studios. So they already owned the proprietary rights to a lot of these movies. You found HBO films on HBO. You know what I mean? It's like Paramount. Paramount Plus now has all of their Paramount films. And you forget, like, damn, they made, like, that's the mountains in the beginning, and it says Paramount, you know what I mean? Like, Tom Cruise clearly has a production deal with Paramount. Because I remember I was on Prime, like, just the other day, and I was like, damn, they got The Firm, they've got A Few Good Men, they've got Top Gun, they've got Top Gun Maverick, they've got them all. But that's because he's got a production deal with them. Very much like they used to have back in the old days of Hollywood, where actors would sign 7 and 10 picture deals at a time with a particular studio, and that studio owned them until they were done making that amount of pictures, right? But it feels really greedy to me because for all these years, I think, as fans of cinema and fans of good television and great scripted shows, I just assumed that these folks were eating, right? I understood when COVID hit and everything shut down, oh, this isn't good, right? This is tough because obviously,
Yeah, but I mean, really, how long has Netflix been around? 5 years?
No.
8 years?
Like at least 10, man.
Okay, 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's still in its infancy.
Yeah, but they have 300 million monthly subscribers.
I get it.
They're making billions every single month.
I get it. But if you break
they don't
that
even,
down,
and they have no brick and mortars. Wait, what is there aside from them making programming, which they do a great job of, and paying really big fat corporate executive? Where is their overhead?
I get it. You're hating the corporations?
No. I'm just like, but pay the people. I want my TV shows. I pay a lot of money. I have every single one of these streaming services. I probably drop $150 a month on streaming services alone, right?
Yeah, but why? If everyone had the same stuff, you wouldn't. You'd only have one. That's the whole thing. Netflix gets this movie, Hulu gets.
But I can buy it all on Prime.
Pretty much.
And I still have a DVD player, so I still got a lot of my. And that's the other thing too that I will say about some of these things. We're paying these monthly fees to these people, right? And this is probably a different conversation. But we don't own any of it. It's like we're leasing our favorite shows and our favorite movies, right? Whereas just a couple years ago, we would have gone to Best Buy or Amazon or wherever.
Or Blockbuster.
Well, no, you would have rented it. Like I've always been like a cinemaphile. Like I love the movies, so I've always had, a VHS collection. I've always had a DVD.
200 DVDs right now.
I have 800. So yeah, and I have all the shows, and I get the special editions, and
I used to go to Blockbuster and buy the used ones for $5.
Yeah. Yep. But we used to at least own them. Like, so what happens if you don't want to subscribe to Amazon Prime anymore? Now you don't own shit. So every $9.99, every $5.99, every $24.99 you dropped is gone, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? If I don't want to pay for Max anymore, or I can't afford to play for Max anymore. There goes The Wire, there goes Game of Thrones, there goes Sex and the City, and Just Like That, and and it's crazy because I feel like we live in this perpetual state of a renting now in 2023, right? Like our phones, most people don't buy their phone outright. And by the time you get to the end, it's like, okay, well, you give us $500 and we'll give you a brand new phone. So you're constantly paying for a phone, right?
Everything
is leased. Everything. We don't own shit. You don't own your music anymore. They've convinced us to buy Apple Music, Spotify, but instead of now having the DVD or the CD or the tape cassette, again, if I no longer want to spend 50, they can keep raising the rent.
Yeah, and people will keep paying.
Because we don't own anything anymore. So I got 1 million songs. Yeah, until you don't. And then you don't have one. You're going to be scrounging around.
Welcome to cloud life.
It's crazy. What does that mean? I mean,
it means that what you have, theoretically, is in the cloud. But if you stop subscribing to that cloud, your shit's gone.
I mean, you can download, right? Like, you can download some of it. Some of them give you the opportunity to save it on a hard drive. But obviously, even that takes up a lot of space. Yeah. Now you've got to add to it.
Kids don't make cassettes anymore.
It's crazy town. Although you can buy vinyl. You can still buy vinyl. And I'm glad that it's having a little resurgence. But it's just frustrating to me because the more you look at all the moving pieces to this, the more you're like, you're just trying to get over on everybody. And the corporate and the executives, like Bob Iger, obviously the president of Disney, clearly genius with some things, but basically called the actors and the writers selfish the other day. And it was like, my man, what was your bonus? Like, what was your golden parachute when you left? And how much did they pay you to get you back? And your company has lost billions, right? But you're paying people 13 cents per episode. You know what I mean? Somebody got -1. They all started posting. Did you see these threads over the weekend? They all started sharing what their residual checks looked like. And it was horrifying. Like, I felt bad for them. And I think a lot of us sit back and think every actor is a Brad Pitt who owns, a French chateau and is making wine. And it's like, nah, most of them are not. There's 160,000 members or something like that, right? Of SAG-AFTRA. It's a lot of people. And it's just, it's wild to me because I feel like, once again, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the stupid stimulus packages that we got during COVID.
I mean, these people negotiated these deals when they had it. I thought this whole thing was over the new AI crap they're trying to do. But these people all negotiated these contracts when they walked out. Before they walked on that stage, they knew what they were getting. You can't walk onto you can't make a contract, walk out, act, do whatever, do your job, and then come back 2 years later and go, I need more money.
That's what that is, though. Like, you're paying for people. You're paying for people's likenesses. That's why when you join SAG-AFTRA, like, that's the whole deal with that. Like, people have gotten residual checks since the beginning. Well, I don't want to say since the beginning of Hollywood, but for a long time.
But they were negotiated before they did.
I get that, but then they just went and added a bunch of. It's like adding a bunch of Cayman Islands into play, and there's no rules or regulations. Right? So it's kind of like free space. So we don't really have to pay you because does it exist or does it not? We don't really know. Like, no, bitch, we know you have money in those bank accounts.
Yeah, well, somebody is releasing the shows to those streaming services. So there is ultimately somebody who owns Friends.
Yeah.
So they have to release it to that streaming service. So if they're not working on the actors' behalf, let's just put it like this. Maybe the actor signed a thing that says, okay, you get 1% or 1/10 of 1% of all the revenue generated by this show in syndication.
Yep.
So the executive says, okay, I'm going to sell this show to Hulu for $1. You get 1/10 of 1% of that dollar.
I get that, but this is not a new situation. And the problem is when you shoot a show for a Netflix and then in a cost-cutting attempt, they cancel it after one season, and then they don't sell it into syndication anywhere else. So it's like now you put all of this work and this time and this effort into a program, like from a writer's perspective, from a producer's perspective, from an actor's perspective. Before, when you were shooting things for studios or whatever, there was always somebody that could buy it. Now you have all of these independent platforms creating content, and when they no longer want to pay, like they're on record as saying it, when they don't want to pay the residuals, they just pull the content from the platform. And so it's kind of like it's just nasty business, because for fans of that show, sometimes that's the show that you tuned in to watch.
I get it, but you know, some shows suck, but there's still people who like them. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, shows die off all the time.
But Lenny,
I mean, why did HBO end Game of Thrones?
But the thing is, there used to be rules to it. So it was like before, like when it was network television, there was a marker that meant you could make it into syndication. It was usually 5 seasons. Once you had 5 seasons under your belt, you were 100 episodes, you were normally qualified for syndication. Like, so you were like, all right, bet. And that's why you'd see a lot of shows that would stop at season 5, season 6. Yeah. You know, you have Cheers, again, you have the Cosbys, you have Friends that go 9, 10 seasons, but that was a rarity. Most would stop as soon as they were eligible for syndication because everybody was happy, and then you could go on and do a new project, right? This is a different situation when you're doing original content. It's like, you know, the folks that worked for HBO. HBO has always created phenomenal original content, right? And they pretty much give you access to it. I haven't seen them pull too much original content. Like The Wire's still up. I'm talking about some of their shows that go back to kind of when they first started making their own programming.
Because they don't have to pay residuals on that, I don't think. If it's on their network.
I would find that very hard to believe. But I will also say this. They hire the same actors a lot. Mm-hmm. It's like that's a running joke between me and my mom is like, you know, you'll be watching a brand new show. You'll be like, isn't he from The Wire? Isn't he from True Blood? Isn't he from whatever? Like, literally, Eric Northman is in Succession. Eric Northman was one of the stars. Well, and I'm using a character name, but that's from True Blood. Skarsgård. I can't remember his last name. But it's so once you get into an HBO show, it's almost like getting residuals, right? Like once you're on a hit show for HBO, you're almost guaranteed to get another check from HBO because they're going to hire you back. They hire great talent. They hire great writers. You know, they use a lot of the same people. Once you've produced a show on that network, they're usually going to give you another deal. Like, I mean, they're very good, I think, at what they do. But it just, I feel like at this point, it is time. I'm not mad at the actors for striking. You have a lot of people that are out here telling, oh, they're selfish. No, I think that we need to go back to the table because otherwise the corporations, the executives, the dollar men will take advantage of this wild, wild west kind of, you know, landscape that they have that is clearly working in their favor, especially as they figure out what works and what doesn't, right? That's the other thing that we're seeing.
Well, the actors are going to have to get paid more up front.
Facts. And I think that they're going to work on, I mean, I think they'll figure out ways. Or maybe it'll be like, okay, Netflix, you own the rights to your show for 5 years. But after that, if somebody comes along, maybe you don't want to pay for it anymore, but maybe you sell it or you lease it out to Hulu. Maybe maybe there'll be more kind of cross promotional deals between different
you see it
streaming
with
services
all the time. Movies go from platform to platform.
You do. Again, they go from platform to platform though. These are platforms where you're coming for, you know, their original content. So that's a bit different. I've never seen a HBO show on another streaming service.
No.
You can buy them on Amazon Prime because they have HBO, you know, they have a partnership. Like Amazon, Bezos is a smart little cookie because he's worked out deals where obviously you can subscribe through your Amazon Prime to almost any other streaming service. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So it's all kind of under one umbrella and it's one bill as opposed to me who's got 17 different things going on. But the AI thing is the other part of that. And I think they would have gone on strike regardless. I think the AI has just come into play in such a big way that it feels like, again, the Hollywood suits are trying to capitalize, and they're using that as a leverage play, which we talked about when we had our AI conversation a few months ago. That's kind of scary, Len, because everything we talked about in that particular podcast episode, we've already started to see come into play or come to fruition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you want to say?
Yeah, but remember, like my biggest thing was from a creative perspective. That was my biggest point of concern. Was like,
it's nuts. It's inevitable. So I don't know.
Is it though?
What were we? You sent me a thing. We were talking about the actors getting their whole persona.
Yeah, their likeness. They want to scan their likeness, and then that way, and by they, that's the studios. That way, they can use them in perpetuity. They can use them for forever without paying them. So they want to scan them one time, and then they have access, and they own their likeness forever. And they really want to do it not so much with the principals, but with a lot of the kind of the extras.
Do you think that there's not going to be a line of actors waiting for that first paycheck and saying, fuck it, you can own me, but pay me now? I mean, they're not asking them to scan it in for free. They want to pay them.
I don't think that there will be a line because they're all striking because they don't want that to be the case.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a good amount that'll sign up.
Scabs?
Life away.
So this is basically the scabs that are going to cross the picket line?
You're talking about C-level actors. You're talking about, a lot of them are just going to sign up and sign their life away.
That's very scary, though. And again, that goes back to another conversation that we have frequently here, financial literacy and understanding the value of your IP, the value of your likeness, the value of your thoughts and your ideas, especially.
It's only worth what someone will pay you. You can think you're worth whatever but it's only worth
but guess what, Len? When you finally manifest that and you get to that place and they own your likeness and they can come in and they can shut you down and they can ask for a piece, they can try to control whatever you're outputting. Like, that's a very scary and a very real situation. Or you work for another company and anything that you create underneath that umbrella then belongs to them.
Well, I don't know that that's the case. I mean, when they say own your likeness, I think they mean using it for future.
But that means they can literally
film.
sell you. No, they can use you for a future film. They can sell you into a B-roll company if they wanted to. It's almost like having not masters, but if I own all of these people, I have this massive collection.
This is the music industry.
of headshots.
This is the music industry. I mean, people own other people's portfolios. Other people's songs, they own that. Mm-hmm. Who bought the Beatles?
Well, Michael Jackson
bought it. Who owns it now?
Paul McCartney bought it back.
Yeah. So he owns that catalog. So they're just essentially trying to catalog the actors.
Do you know how many? But we've gotten better though, Len. So as you say that, yes, that used to really be the case back in the day, right? And then as artists have become more aware of the importance of owning their material, of owning their likeness, of owning their work, more artists fight to own their masters. We just saw Taylor Swift go through it, right? Mm-hmm. And literally her masters got sold to basically her arch enemy, her main nemesis in Scooter Braun and whatever. And so what has she done? She has gone back into the studio and is re-recording all of her music over again to own the masters of this set because she understands the value of that. Dolly Parton had the opportunity to have Elvis record I Will Always Love You. Elvis never recorded anything without owning the masters to it, without owning it outright. Dolly said, go fuck yourself. She didn't say that because she's Dolly Parton. She wouldn't tell Elvis himself. But she was like, nah, I'm good. So he never recorded the song. Thank God, because fast forward 25 years, Whitney Houston does The Bodyguard, and it's literally the best-selling song of all time or whatever, or one of them. You know what I'm saying? But she was smart enough and she paid attention enough. She started she had a, what is that called? She was a songwriter. So she had her own production company and has owned her masters since the beginning. But again, she just had the foresight, and that was pioneer type shit, especially for a female in the business. So I think it's important to remind people, and it's scary because yes, there are some starving artists out there right now that'll be like, fuck it. And what are they going to pay Joe Schmo from Little Rock? Nothing. They're giving people established artists 13 cents an episode. What do you think you're going to get for your likeness? Nobody even knows who you are. And they're going to say that to you, and they're going to chip them down. They're going to take nothing, and the next thing you know, he becomes the next Brad Pitt and friggin'
without you say 13 cents an episode, but you have to. I mean, you've sat through the end of a movie and watched the credits.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, all of those people, writers, producers, they all get a piece.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody gets a piece. That's the movie industry, right? So,
executive producers get a piece
I
because those are the money
producers,
people.
too. I think producers too. I think writers. I think all the creatives in the entire.
I don't think the people that work for like the sound. I mean, there's a lot of names on there. The big names that run across the screen in the very beginning. I don't think that.
I'd be curious to know.
I don't think that the sound people and the special effects people get it.
It seems like a very big pie, but it's cut into a lot of pieces. A lot of pieces. So when you say somebody's getting 13 cents an episode, I mean, you know, it's look at Friends or Seinfeld. They've played 1.5 million times. All these things play so much that sometimes a little bit adds up.
Yeah, but again, I don't with those more traditional deals, that I think is a big fat check that you get in the beginning. And then, you know, for however long it lasts there. That's why, again, like I said, it's kind of like the Howard Stern deals with Sirius, right? Like every few years, Howard's contract comes up and he gets another $250 million, one less day a week that he has to work, and a few extra, you know.
Scarlett Johansson
shares.
Had a huge
Well, that was the Disney fight that she had.
Yeah. Huge fight because they released her movie and she took all the money on the back end.
Well, yeah, 'cause they released it straight to the streaming service and
because
not
it was
in theaters.
COVID.
Yeah,
yeah.
But they also pushed back other films.
It went into theaters, but yeah.
No, that was the whole deal.
Black Widow was in theaters,
but it was released to streaming on the same exact day.
Yes.
Like so, it went to both platforms.
Yes.
As opposed to them just holding it. Look at what happened with Top Gun Maverick. Tom Cruise fought, Paramount held off, and $1 billion film. Not saying that Black Widow would have done that, but we already know what those movies do. She knew what that movie was worth. Yeah. And a lot of them took back-end deals. So, you know, because that became the lucrative thing. Nestor and I were talking about that. You had the Will Smiths of the world, the Rocks. Tom Cruise is probably one of the guys that started that, just because when you start to realize, okay, I could ask for 50 mil and get it, but why not take the 20, leave them extra room to bring in other actors. I know this film is going to be a hit because it's me, right? And I'm going to eat off of DVD sales. And again, like you said, off of syndication and it going on this service and on that service and overseas and blah, blah, blah. And they made money. It's why these guys are worth $500 million. But again, I'm not mad at coming back to the drawing board and trying to reestablish boundaries and make sure that people are paid what they're worth. And that's the other problem. Like you said it, there's a lot of people that are employed by Hollywood. Right. And if everything is going into this streaming space where nobody's eating, like that's what a lot of these working actors and creators are saying. They're like, I can't pay my rent. I can't do this. I can't do that. And these are established people. And so when you're used to making this amount of money and then all of a sudden, like I said, there's the wild, wild west, like, and the money just all of a sudden dries up. Like what happens? It's not okay. You have to look out. Like you have to look out for your people. This is why they have unions. You know, what I don't want to see though is a world full of more reality television, and that looks like where we're headed. Because when, you know, the folks that write,
it's also, you know, entertainment in general is changing because people are entertained by social media a lot. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people who sit on their couch at night scrolling through Instagram and TikTok and Facebook rather than watching a show.
There are, but they tried that. Do you remember they tried that thing called Tubi? Do you remember? Like, it was like right at the beginning of COVID. It was supposed to be this very short form. It was a short form streaming platform where everything was like 5, 10, 15 minutes.
My kid never watches TV. My kid only watches YouTube.
Yeah,
they only watch YouTube. That's all they watch. They don't watch anything else. Netflix. My daughter watches Netflix.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all they watch. So.
What are they watching?
Joey just watches, stupid basketball shit, football plays. Just, 3-4 minute clips of something. And that's what they watch. They watch it. They watch it. They don't turn on the TV. And if they do turn on the TV, it's only to watch a movie.
Yeah, I mean, but there's obviously some kids that are watching because a lot of this is like YA content that's coming out on Netflix and on Hulu, and it's doing extremely well. You have the Selena Gomez's, you have certain artists that are crossing over into the acting space where they started in music, or this whole Disney generation, the Nickelodeon generation, of child actors that are growing up and are getting back into, they were child actors and they became musicians and now they're going back to the acting thing. I mean, I don't think that it's ever going to completely die or go away. I think people like to be entertained. I would like to see more people, go to the actual movies.
I just don't want, and I can see the uproar that they have about
the AI is not cool.
No, I can see the uproar they have about the AI. Okay, that's fine. But the bottom line is, if you make a deal and then 5 years down the road things change, you can't go back and change the deal.
Yes, you can. It's called renegotiation. This is what unions do. Collective bargaining agreements. That's what you do.
That's
so
an
when
overall. That's an overall.
But their deal was up.
Yes,
their deal was up, and they couldn't come to an agreement.
That's an overall thing.
Because
I'm talking about individuals.
Okay, but yeah, and I get that, but this is a different space. So if that wasn't on the table when we created this particular content, nobody foresaw this. Like, I mean, unless
Nobody
it was The Simpsons might have seen
changing. I mean, things change.
But streaming, but this is a different animal though, Len. Like now you're talking about they're pulling content out of their asses. Like before you had to buy the DVD. Like if you wanted to watch all of the John Hughes Brat Pack movies, you had to go out and buy the DVDs, right? If you wanted to really have The Godfather at your fingertips at any given time, you had to buy all of the films.
Yeah, but the streaming services are buying those from someone. The streaming services aren't downloading them on their own.
They're leasing them from the studios.
Okay.
But before there was a difference. So if you were buying them, a piece of that, you could work that into your deal, right? Like if I'm Will Smith, everybody that buys Independence Day, the DVD, I'm getting a check from that. It's like ASCAP, like you said, for musicians.
But I think they still get a percentage of the
But not everybody is a Will Smith. Not everybody has that kind of bargaining power.
I think everybody who had a piece of the back end still gets a piece of the back end when they sell it to the streaming service. The only thing is the streaming services are paying one fee, and it's not as much as they're used to getting.
I understand that, Lenny, but then they also own exclusive rights to it. And so if they don't want to pay you and they don't want somebody else to have their original content, they just take it off, and now you're completely out of gas. Whereas before,
yes, so like
maybe
I said,
you
the
would have.
Actors are going to have to make money up front, and the back end's.
Well, that's why they're trying to go back to the table. But I'm telling you right now, these streaming services, like you're here, they're nowhere near on the same page. Nowhere. And like I said, Bob Iger is out here, and I'm just using him because he's the one getting dragged, and he literally went viral over the weekend because people were like, did that man really just say this? Because it's like he's implying that everybody is making Scarlett Johansson money, and majority, once again, of actors are not. You know what I'm saying? They're making literal, somebody, -1. They got to check for -1 cent. How do you even do that? I don't know. But he was like, how do you actually, like, I had to pay them to be on their show? This is crazy. Like, it's absolutely wild. So I'm not mad at them setting the record straight because we see it all the time in sports, right? Whenever a player is holding out for a bigger deal or whenever, an entire league decides to go on strike. And we don't necessarily understand, the nooks and the crevices, all the moving parts and pieces. Like, when the NFL went on strike the last time, a big part of that was fighting for the rights of veterans, healthcare. Like the league literally wanted to cancel healthcare for vets after 5 years. Well, when the average player ages out of the league, at 25 or 26, you're 31, maybe your CTE doesn't hit you until you're 38 or 39, but now you have, now you've got no resources left and you're literally falling apart with the next 40 years of your life ahead of you. Like, so those were some of the things. So it's like, oh, they're so selfish, they're so greedy. And it's like, yeah, but you have to look big picture. How many guys on that team, you're thinking about the Patrick Mahomes money, you're thinking about the Brad Pitt money, you're thinking about the Angelina Jolie money. You're not thinking about all those other people on the credits that you're talking about, Lenny.
Yeah, I get it, but it's still, it's you choose an industry, you go to work, the automotive industry. They saw the devastation when they outsourced all the automotive building. It destroyed that industry.
But we allowed them. Meh.
It destroyed that industry.
It did, and here's the thing. So
and it hurt a lot of people.
I sit on the and I sit on the fence with this because I come from an industrial area in the Northeast. We have fishermen, and we also had a lot of manufacturing. Titleist was there, a Cushing & Company. We had factories, and people used to fight for those jobs.
What's the lowest? We used the baseball strike, right? Is that what you were talking about?
Well, I said football. I mean, they've all gone on strike within the last.
So what's the lowest a player earns in football?
Like practice squad.
What's the lowest?
Probably 80.
Oh, okay, practice squad. What's the lowest that is starting?
350, I think.
I think it's higher. I think it's like 460. But whatever.
What their earning potential is literally 3 years on average.
Okay. So 3 years at earning. So they're going to earn
1.2. If you're right, they make 1.3 maybe.
1.4.
Get taxed. They're walking with 750, 800.
Yeah.
Paying an agent.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean,
they're walking with 500,000
over 3 years.
Yeah. I get it.
You making $1.60? You know what I'm saying?
I get it,
but people are looking at it going, "Oh, they're so spoiled," and may have done permanent damage to their brain to entertain the masses.
I get that too. But when these people are going into these sports or going into these things, I mean, even acting. There's plenty of actors that hit big and then disappear. I mean, Travolta was dead for 20 years. Until Pulp Fiction.
But he was also, I mean, the guy prior to that for a long time.
But not that long. I mean, he didn't make that many films. He didn't make a lot of money prior to, he had Welcome Back, Kotter. He had Grease, Saturday Night Fever. Then he disappeared.
Yeah, look who's talking. He was big in the 80s and the early 90s. And then he had a complete resurgence with Pulp Fiction. I mean, I understand what you're saying.
It's like, you pick a career, especially professional athletes. Going into that career, you're only going to play for 2 or 3 years, 4 years. I mean, 5 years.
Football, yes.
Whatever. 5 years, let's say average 6 years.
Well, no, basketball, like, look at the guys we're looking at guys that have been playing for fucking 20 at this point. Like, basketball is different. Baseball is different. Yeah. Once you actually make it to that level.
You have a career. You know how long it's going to be, basically. Okay?
Yeah.
Unless it's cut short for some reason. You got to plan for that. You can't go as a 22-year-old into the NFL and expect to live the rest of your life off what you make.
Once again,
in that
financial literacy, though. It goes back to us actually educating people on their value and understanding how to budget and plan for the future. It's the same reason why you should be encouraging kids not to just go out and sell their likeness to the first studio or streaming service that comes along and is like, hey. In fact, right now, athletes are learning. You won't ever see it. Imagine this was a conversation we were having 3 years ago, pre all these NIL deals that are happening now in college sports, right? If these kids had sold their likeness to just the first, because there are predators out there who are going to start up firms that are going to be like, hey, I'm going to cut you a check, 10 G's, but they already know, like, that's catalog, like, there's so many ways to make money off of somebody's physical appearance. They could sell your likeness into the porn industry, for God's sakes. You know what I'm saying? If you're a good-looking guy, even if you're not Ron Jeremy, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy the amount of ways you can monetize on somebody's likeness. So if we don't teach people that, like, this is all you got. Are you kidding me? This should be your most valuable asset on the planet is you. And you're the only one that can control what that looks like. Once you sell it, they can do whatever they want with it.
Yeah. But,
that's scary.
It's a shame, but those industries, we talked about the whole, couch interview type of thing that went on in those industries.
Oh, you're talking about like the casting couch?
Yes, the casting couch.
Don't say it like that while we're sitting on a couch. Don't do that.
How do you think she got the job?
Trust me, not like that. And I got the DMs to prove it.
No, but it's you're going to see a lot of less successful actors. I think it's going to be a harder level to breach without signing your life away.
Well, and that to me is what's scary about it, because yes, there will be a caveat written into whatever the outcome is of these negotiations that are taking place right now, whatever the final outcome is. Established people will always come out better than the little guy, than the upcoming, than the incoming squad, unless you have people that are really thinking long term for the industry and protecting people that are coming in. And you hope you've got a few of those people. I know, again, to take it back to the NFL, that was that's one of the reasons why they have former players that sit on the NFLPA. You know what I'm saying? That's why they bring vets back. It's like, do it better than it was done for us kind of thing, And so you hope that happens, but it is Hollywood, and we know that is probably one of the most ruthless. Like, the entertainment industry is vicious.
Yes, it is.
And it will eat you up. And professional sports is a part of entertainment when you think about it, big picture. But it's just scary to me because there's so many conversations, and what's happening in Hollywood oftentimes impacts many people because it really is such a big beast of an industry, right? Not just here, but also globally. It's a huge part of why, like, when the WTO calls, when we have big meetings of the minds, what is the number one thing that is fought about? Intellectual property rights. Whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's the film industry, whether it's, corporate, what would that be considered? Like, if I have your insider information, if I'm a tech company, your proprietary information. Yeah. This is what they fight about. It's not about, giving comparative advantage to the folks in Africa that grow coffee cheaper than we do in America. That's the bottom of they're going for the big dogs because there's so much money wrapped up in IP. So, if you're watching this or if you're having these discussions about what's happening in Hollywood, that should tell you when the biggest players in the world are the most concerned about their, proprietary protection, about their likeness, whatever that looks like, you should be too, no matter what that is. And Lenny, you said it before we even started. It's not just Hollywood. This is across the board. Yeah. Like when you add that chat GPT, when you start to add, AI into things, it's like technically you could have a copywriter on your staff, right? And everything you're writing, if you're uploading it into AI, that's their IP. They work for you. So, I mean, depending on whether or not...
It's my IP.
But it depends on if they're an independent contractor.
Mm-hmm. It depends if they're getting paid to do it. If they're getting paid to do it, it belongs to the person who's paying them.
Really? Even as an independent contractor?
Pretty much.
But a marketing company, if you pay a marketing company to come up with a campaign for you, and they create a character.
You're paying them for that campaign. That belongs to the company.
Okay, so you own that. They can't go and reuse that. But normally there's some sort of agreement signed off on with that. Like, because when you enter into a deal with a marketing company, you obviously, there's a contract exchange.
Yeah, but you own the stuff they make for your company. I mean, I'm sure there's some that try not to, but I would never hire a marketing company that made stuff that I didn't own.
But what I'm saying to you is, for a lot of young people that are coming into industry, right, depending on what they're going to school for or what they do.
If you get paid to do a job and that job includes thinking, those thoughts that you put down on that paper belong to that company. It's that fucking simple. You can't... companies couldn't function. Or what are you going to hold hostage? I'll give you a perfect example. People come in, you hire somebody... You say, set up an IG. They set it up on their Facebook. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's not yours. But then these people leave and they hold the company hostage. Mm-hmm. And it happens a lot. It happens to celebrities. It happens to anybody who has an Instagram.
But it happened to Darla. Do you remember?
Whoever has somebody managing their Instagram will get fucked. And that is a perfect example of You hire somebody to do a job for you, it's not their right to take it.
But again, I think that that's one of those things that it's important to start teaching
Yeah.
I say that because, again,
but teaching them what?
No, because it's like with anything. When you if you hire a contractor, it's in the name, for fuck's sake. It's a contractor. There's a contract signed between you and that person, right? There's dates laid out. There's supposed to be a timetable associated with the build, right? If it's a GC, you specify, okay, well, I have an electrician, but everybody else, right? If there's specifications, you can tailor the contract, but it's all laid out, right? This is a world, it's all uncharted territory. So it's about teaching people how to maneuver in a lot of these spaces. It's not just pulling a lever, right? Like if we're not in manufacturing, it's different when you go to work every day. Again, I hate to say there's not much thought in that, but obviously the people who designed the factory is one thing, but the factory worker who does this, he's bringing his grit to the job.
It boils down to this. You hire Scarlett Johansson to make The Black Widow. You know the movie doesn't belong to Scarlett Johansson.
Mm-hmm.
It belongs to the studio who made it.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple. Your deal, Scarlett Johansson's deal, whatever it may have been,
Yeah, but the different... Go ahead, sorry.
Whatever it may have been, I'm going to make X amount of dollars and then 10% of anything it does over that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's your deal.
But as far as the Black Widow is concerned, the scary part is in 2023 and moving forward... What we're talking about now is them having her likeness and being able to repurpose that for any future project.
But they don't own that yet. They want to own that. The studios want to.
I get that, Lenny, but you have to have the wherewithal to be able to read through contract and fine print.
That's really what the union is for. The union is supposed to protect them.
I get that. But we also live in a country and in a society that would love to see unions shut down. We started this conversation off by saying exactly that. Is that our timer?
Yes.
By saying exactly that unions are important because this is what they do. It's a collective, it's a collective fighting on behalf of a large.
Yeah. There's certain unions that are necessary, I think. PBA, even the Actors Guild. It's, you can't really be an actor without a SAG card.
Well, no, and it also protects you, but it does protect you from the little guy that's just trying to get a leg up or a quick buck that would undercut you. You know what I'm saying? It helps create some parity. It helps create, norms in the sense of, what is a day rate? How much should you be making? There's scale, you know what I mean? And all of these things that it's important to know that information. But again, to the average person, if that's not a part of what you do on a daily basis, you have no idea what the fuck any of that means. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I love this podcast because I learn so much when different headlines come up, and even being in radio. But I'm a person who has to sign one of those deals quite frequently. Like that comes down. I signed my initial contract, but you had to start reading it because they switched things up when social media started to take off. Please bet your bottom dollar that all of a sudden those contracts that used to relate to on air and endorsements all of a sudden started having social media clauses in there. And again, if you're just getting in, are you going to really go toe-to-toe with, a major entertainment behemoth? Do you even have the money to hire a $400 an hour lawyer? You know what I mean?
No, you're coming right out of school. You're getting your first job. You're seeing that first paycheck.
And you may not even realize what that means.
Fuck, I'll just sign that.
Until you become the next Ryan Seacrest on that first contract. They don't want to pay you. You decide you want to go somewhere else. And they're like, yeah, buddy, you can't use that name anymore, though. So everything you've spent your career building, they now own. If you used a stage name, if you use, if you created characters, if you have a social media presence, they can technically say, sorry, that belongs to us. A lot of them, in my experience, don't flex that hard, but I'm also not Ryan Seacrest. Do you know what I mean? And I think that Ryan is probably brilliant enough, or I would think has a team enough to know how to maneuver in those situations. I know working with Laz, that became a big, not a point of contention, but something that he, was adamant about. And that was a fight that he would have to have. I own my social media because otherwise they try to sell it. You know what I mean? For their rate, not yours. Yeah. Like, and there's so many moving pieces. So it's like, I think it is important. And I think that a lot more industries, because every industry now is using this.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what it is. Like, there's a glue company. What is it? One of those crazy glue, like, infomercial companies that sends me influencer boxes on the regular. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? It's Flexi Seal or whatever. And I know one of the girls who does their social media, but that's a whole... They're paying $90,000, $100,000 a year to multiple people to handle their social media for Flexi Seal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because social media is that important to every industry at this point. So again, I think that we're going to learn a lot from what's happening in Hollywood. You're now not going to get some of your favorite shows for probably a decade. This is legit. Like, they've already started pushing back. Oh my God. It wasn't Game of Thrones. It was another one. We're not getting... Oh, Euphoria, which is on Max. 2026.
I have no idea what that is.
2026. It's such a great... It's an incredible show, but we're not getting it now until at least 2026.
Oh, well.
Season 3 or season whatever it was.
I'm worried about them stopping production on Deadpool 3.
When was it supposed to come out?
Yeah, they stopped production.
Did they stop? Well, no. I mean, well, you had people walking out of screenings. Oppenheimer's supposed to come out, and the director and the cast literally walked out of the screening to stand in solidarity with their brothers and sisters in Hollywood.
Oppenheimer's going to be a good movie.
It's going to be incredible. I mean, the good news is there's a lot of stuff already banked and in the can, and obviously we've already been dealing with shutdowns because the writers have been on strike. This is just
They still have stuff in the can from 4 to 5 years ago.
They do, but again, and we will wrap up, but I just want to go back to what we were talking about with AI. Like, this is where it gets very hairy and very scary, and I hope that fans don't fall for the okie doke, because if you remember in that original podcast that we had about this, I was like, what I don't want to see happen is somebody say, well, we love Van Gogh, and now I want just, okay, I don't want to pay this new artist Van Gogh prices, even though they're an incredible artist, right? So I'm just going to have AI keep creating me new Van Goghs, whatever that, you know what I'm saying? Or we've seen it with the music already. They're literally making up new songs using Drake, Future, Rihanna, all of these well-established artists. And you've got producers that are writing their own lyrics and sticking established artists' voices on top of them, and streaming services were playing the music. And it's like, this is not okay. Like, this is what I don't want to do, because if that artist says, I don't ever want to, it's like when Prince gave the middle finger to the recording industry, basically, and was like, until I own my masters, like when he became the symbol. Remember? Mm-hmm. That was a whole play on his likeness and his name and somebody owning it and him wanting to have full control over everything. With AI, they could say, cool, don't worry about it. Because whatever I already own, now I have the ability to take your voice.
I get it.
It's scary, Lenny.
What I don't get, okay, is if you're an artist and you're going out and you're making a deal with somebody and you're getting started and you're doing this, it's almost like buyer beware. It's like buying a used car. It's the same thing. If someone's giving you the chance of a lifetime to become somebody,
yeah, but Lenny,
you have to sacrifice something at that point.
You do, but you have no idea, Len. You have no idea how bad some of these deals are, and there are predatory people in these industries that specifically go for the really people as bottom of the barrel as they can. The folks who are literally one day away from either ending up in, you know what I mean? It's not okay. And why, if we know better, shouldn't we do better? And again, if we're not teaching the younger generations how to look out for themselves, how to make better decisions, like you just sat here and said, as an athlete at this point in the game, you've got to prepare for your future. How many times are we going to see guys go broke? How many times are you going to watch people end up bankrupt, make bad decisions, spend their money on cars and jewelry? Like at this point, the cautionary tale is there.
Let me ask you a question. You know the kids that are coming up in sports now. They're watching and learning and studying all of the athletes that have come up for the last 20 years.
They are, but
30 years.
But guess what?
All of it's there. And what's the first thing they all do? They go out and buy a gold chain, a Rolex. a this, a that. Everyone.
Listen, if you buy the right Rolex, you're good. That's an investment. It's like buying a Birkin.
You know what I'm saying?
No.
They go out and they spend their money. They go to the club. They spend $5,000. They go here. They spend $5,000.
I get that, Len, but can I tell you something, though? That information wasn't as available in a lot of ways until more recently. And I say that because you have
last 10 years?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
last 10 years.
But they're getting better. Now you have kids. Yo, these kids are getting checks in high school and in college. They're making endorsement deals. They got 100,000 followers on Instagram. They're paid before they even, and I'm happy for them. Mm-hmm. But because people are now guys are now using their social media and they're being, in my opinion, socially responsible. They're doing what they should have been doing for decades, but were, I think, honestly, too embarrassed to do, because so many of these, when we talk about sports in general, so many of them falter because of mismanagement. So many of them falter because people take advantage of their lack of knowledge and their lack of financial literacy, right? And I've been saying for years, if McDonald's can throw an event like the McDonald's All-American, right? Like the All-American where they bring in all the basketball players. If they can invest that kind of money in that, why are they not investing in, again, financial literacy programs in junior high and high school? These are the future of your brands. Like, you guys want all of these athletes to have your name attached to them, but when they make bad decisions, that negatively impacts you guys if your names are synonymous. So to me, it would behoove you to invest in them earlier on so that they are Michael Jordan-esque, or, you know what I mean? They can make better financial decisions. Unfortunately, they weren't looking at it that way because a lot of people make a lot of money off of these guys making bad decisions.
Yeah.
Entire cities operate off of it. Miami. Like, you know what I'm
Plus
saying?
Vegas.
They're all LA, all of them.
That's what it is.
But I do see more guys now using, again, with social media, you see guys buying art and sharing that information. You've got different, artists that are talking about their money moves and things like that.
Let me ask you this.
Benefits
Let's
of social
just
media.
say you have somebody that you know is talented but can't take it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And you go to them and you say, all right, look, I'm going to take you and your talent from here to here, but I want half.
Mm-hmm.
So
is it half forever? Is it half right
yeah,
now?
it's half forever.
Yeah, no. Because if you believe in me
Then
that much,
stay here.
if you believe in me that much to want
Then
half of
stay
me for
here.
forever, Lenny, you wouldn't take that deal.
You'd
You
be
wouldn't
surpri-
give
you'd be
somebody half
surprised.
forever. And
That's
I would
not
hope
true.
that you would be smarter and go, you know what? No, or let me buy it back at a certain point. Like, there needs to be a caveat there. Like, I understand what you're saying. A lot of times we take risks, but we've heard how detrimental that is. Like, this is the shit that drives people to suicide.
Have you also heard how successful it is?
Have I heard how successful it is? Who? Give me an example of somebody who gave their manager half of them that is still a living, happy success, and they have a great working relationship with that person.
I'm not saying that. Michael Jordan sold his likeness in college. When he was in his rookie year, he sold his likeness to Nike. He got a piece of it.
What are you talking about? No, his rookie year? They had to make a deal with him when he left.
Did you watch the movie?
You're talking about Air?
Yeah. That was his rookie
That wasn't
year.
his rookie. You're talking about in the pros.
Yeah.
That wasn't in college. No, he
his
won
rookie
in
year,
no.
his rookie year in pros.
Yeah. Okay, two very different things.
But he sold his likeness to Nike.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a perfect example of someone.
He makes $400 million a year.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying to you.
They didn't want to make that deal, though. That was, Lenny.
Look, the deal was made.
Len,
It was done.
No. That was a brilliant move. That was groundbreaking, pioneering.
Yes.
It didn't happen. Guys used to literally get a set amount of money every year. That was it.
Yes.
You wore the shoe.
Yes.
Whoop-de-whoop.
I get it.
That's a very different
So
situation.
again-
Michael Jordan forced their hand in that. What you're telling me
It doesn't matter. He negotiated a good deal. So if you have someone who's here,
that's not what you're talking about, though. That's a different situation. Like to me, you're saying he knew what his talent was. He forced their hand into making that. They almost turned that deal down because he demanded that.
Yes. Okay.
Because he knew what he was capable of doing.
His mom did, but yeah. His mom made.
Oh my God, Lenny, you're literally
But
just
doesn't-
like you're
but
going
the point-
completely off of
no,
a
the
movie.
point
Like,
is-
stop it.
The point is, Kimmy, that if someone is here at this level and they're stuck here, okay, and you can take them to
He
this
wasn't
level.
stuck anywhere, though. You got to stop. Like, that was a horrible. I'm sorry. Like, that analogy just.
If someone is here at this level and they're not they're not able.
You're talking about
they don't
George
have the
Clooney.
right-
George
they don't have
Clooney
the
before
right
he gets
people around
ER.
them. They don't have the right people around them. They don't have the right management. They don't have the right stuff. And they're here, and they're stuck here. But they have talent.
Mm-hmm.
If someone comes in and says, I can get you to this level, but I want half.
That's not what they're talking about doing, though. That's not what this is. Like, that's a difference. Like, now if you're talking about investing in me and my career long term, not just scanning my profile and saying, okay, now I own that. Those are two completely different deals. And those are deals that have been happening for forever in Hollywood. And obviously even with in music and everything
else. The only time that people get mad about those deals is when it doesn't work in their favor anymore, or when they feel like they're getting
But
fucked,
that's going to be an en masse situation, because right now, again, they're targeting it's so that they don't have to, and I understand it, it's to limit the number of those names that you see on the credits rolling, right? Like that's your point to this. So they're really talking about doing it more with extras. Like Nestor was talking about Fast and Furious, and how basically one of the examples that's been used is like, there's 10 movies at this point. They're taking background scenes from film 4 and repurposing them into film 10 or whatever, right? Like different people. It's not principal characters. It's not Vin Diesel. It's not, anybody else. It's not Ludacris. It's not, Tyrese. It's some of the extras, right? So the extra got paid for film 4, and now the extra saying, I want to get paid for film 10. And until this deal is done, they may actually have to fork up some cash and pay them, right? But what they want to do moving forward is say, if you're cast as an extra in this film, we can scan you and bank your likeness over here, and now we own that. So if I want to take you and deep fake you, drop you into some other shit, it doesn't matter if it's part of that franchise or not.
Yeah, I think if it was part of the franchise, it's one thing. If it's not, then.
But again, these are all the moving pieces that are associated with this, and that to me is you're trying to get over, because that kid could become Brad fucking Pitt. And now if I own your likeness, I can make you with AI. I can make you a principal character. That's scary as shit to me.
Yeah.
That's like if Brad Pitt had sold his likeness and says, I want to retire. And he's got, he had a production, or Tom Cruise, Paramount, we were talking about that. Tom Cruise says, I don't want to make any more films. And they're like, well, fuck you. We want at least 10 more Mission Impossibles, right? Mm-hmm. We own your likeness. If Tom had sold them his likeness, they could go make all the Mission Impossibles they want. Mm-hmm. And he can't say shit about it. They could put him in a stupid-ass rom-com that he hates. Like, and that's what I'm talking about, is that when you create things that's scary.
Tom Cruise is going to live forever now.
But I know, but again, if
you have when he's dead?
No, because here's the other issue. Now you have bankable stars that and it goes back to the first conversation we had about AI. What happens to the future generations? If a studio knows they can win with Daniel Craig or Tom Cruise, where's the incentive for them to go out and find the next Ethan Hunt, the next James Bond? If they own their likeness and they own that in perpetuity, there's none. So what happens to the creative arts? What happens to film? What happens to music? What happens to, visual arts? What happens in these spaces? And then it expands beyond that, because you're talking about somebody like me, who now, if it's between me growing a presence, you know what I mean? Like it's a give and take at this point with the companies that I work for, right? But what happens if ManTFup blows up?
Boom.
And I want to bounce, and they're like, well, technically, thank God somebody else owns the property, right? Well, I'm just an employee. Like, I'm an independent contractor. I have nothing to do with it. That's a nice little umbrella for me to have. Mm-hmm. But it's scary, because these are the things you have to think about when you work for other people. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
But, 99% of the world works for other people.
Yeah.
So that's what you have. You either work for someone or you are someone.
But again, look at Bill Gates became one of the richest men in the world off of somebody else's IP that he bought or stole. I don't know. I don't know all the logistics there.
You can't. I'm sorry that people make bad deals. People make bad deals every fucking day.
Okay, but Lenny, this is what but don't capitalize. Like you are the guy that will capitalize on the bad deal.
Isn't that the definition of capitalism?
It is, but being better is educating people. And this is what's happening right now as people are taking to social media to out Hollywood on their bad practices. The next generation is waking up, right? If you want the information, like you said, it's out there. And it's what I said about even with athletes sharing their stories.
Don't be butthurt when they tell you, no problem, go fuck yourself. Just don't be, I mean, you can ask, and I'm a firm believer in if you don't ask, you don't get. But don't be upset if they say fuck you and they go start hiring people who are not in SAG.
But again, this is the other thing that we talked about. And they can't, though. That's, I mean, when you have a union and it's protected.
At some point, they can.
But, Len, all of our conversations come back, though, to just paying people what they're fucking worth. Like, these people are creating billions of dollars in revenue for these streaming services.
What they're worth is how do you put that worth on somebody?
What do you mean? Len, we have the metrics literally on everything at this point. Like, the music industry has changed.
Yeah.
You referenced the music industry. Before, so long as you were a part of a top-selling album, everybody ate. If you wrote on one song, if you wrote one hook on one song, you ate off of that whole project. With the advent of streaming and other things, now you eat based off of whether or not the song you wrote that one hook on is a hit. Not off the album as a whole, right? So now
the album isn't sold. The song is.
Yeah, the song is. And so I see something like that probably coming for streaming services in Hollywood, right? Like, my phone can tell me how many minutes down to the second I was on an app for, right? You don't think Netflix knows exactly how long somebody watched every episode of every show that they've ever? Of course they do, right? So I think it's just going to get very scientific as far as the numbers go. And I'm not mad at that. I want people to earn, you know what I'm saying? But earn what you deserve. But don't just carte blanche right now because, like I said, it's the wild, wild west and there's no parameters. They're 1,000% taking advantage of the fact that this is uncharted water. The suits are making all the money they can right now. They're trying to recoup from losses. They're trying to do, they're doing what suits do. And that is corporate America. But I hope that they are able to come to the table and really lay out some effective groundwork that will make sure that, the show is able to literally and figuratively go on and that people that are creating great products will be properly compensated. I feel that way across the board for every industry. But people like to be greedy and make their money, and executives and bosses and owners like big bonuses. And unfortunately, when you start paying people what they deserve and what they're worth and what they're bringing, and in respect to what they're bringing to the table, sometimes those bonuses get a little smaller. And as a fan, I feel like I'm paying. Again, my last thing, it reminds me of stimulus, right? Like, I never got a stimulus check. You didn't get you know what I mean? I didn't mind it, though. Like, to me, if my taxes are going to people who need it, I don't mind that. If you're taking the tax money that I'm paying to you and you're helping other people so we can keep the show going, cool, right? But do the right thing with it. I get really fucking annoyed when I see some dope boy from fucking Hialeah driving around in a Ferrari and living at the fucking Hard Rock off of PPP loans, right? Like,
yeah, he's in jail now, I'm sure.
He is, but they're not going to recoup that. That didn't help. Didn't help a mom and pop restaurant stay in business, keep their doors open. That didn't help you pay your team. You know what I'm saying? You had to do what you needed to do. So that's my bigger concern. Is just, as a person who's helping fuel all of this with all of my streaming service purchases, do the right fucking thing.
Okay, I'm with you.
No, I don't know you're not. We all know Lenny is not. Lenny is definitely on the corporate suit side, but that's the convo for today. Clearly, our timer went off a few minutes ago. Please like, subscribe, share, and follow. If you've got comments, if you are a part of SAG-AFTRA and you would like to tell Lenny how much you've been making in residuals, feel free to drop that info on there too. Like I said, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram. If you see Kimmy Be Official reply to you, it is me, the person in the video that you're either agreeing with or dragging to filth. Either way, I definitely read the comments, all right? And we will talk to you for episode 60, Len.
Yeah, very exciting.
60's next. It's the ManTFup podcast. Peace out.
Peace.